What's going on, guys? So in front of me we have our 2024 Ford F450 Super Duty Platinum 6.7 liter high output Power Stroke diesel V8, 500 horsepower, 1,200 pound-feet of torque. This is my new truck. Absolutely love it. Traded in my 2017 F450 King Ranch Power Stroke, at the time like 440 horsepower, I think, and about 920 something pound-feet of torque. Can't remember exactly. Next to us, we have our 2023 GMC Sierra Denali 1500 with the 3-liter LZO Baby Duramax diesel 6-cylinder engine. Over there is my wife's Expedition, and this is my daughter's Infiniti. That said, you know, a lot of folks would say these two trucks are not a good side-by-side comparison. You wouldn't compete these two trucks against each other, and that is absolutely true, because this truck would actually dominate fuel economy. This truck has like a 23 gallon fuel tank. It gets like 700 miles to a tank on the highway. It's like 32 miles per gallon highway, 24 to 26 miles per gallon in the city. On the lowest end, the worst driving I've done, I've gotten like 23.5 miles per gallon in the city in this truck. Absolutely insane. Does not have incredible towing numbers, does not have incredible payload capacity numbers, because again, this is a half-ton truck. This, on the other hand, gets between maybe 12 to 16 miles per gallon highway and city. This truck gets roughly the same range, but it does it by way of almost 50 gallons worth of fuel. And this truck has an insane amount of payload and towing capacity. And you really can't compare the two. This truck actually has over 3 times as much towing capacity as this truck. This truck has 3 times, actually, yeah, about 3 times as much payload capacity as this truck. This truck is arguably, I would say, just as comfortable. It's a little less comfortable in terms of like going over bumps and stuff, but the seats, in my opinion, are superior in terms of comfort versus the Denali, which we've had now for over a year, and I still do not like the seats in this truck. That said, though, the point of this video is not to compare a 1.5 ton truck versus a half-ton truck. It's to compare the different philosophies that these two manufacturers have in terms of ergonomics, technology, and how they execute on it. Hang tight, I'll be right back. Okay, so all is fair when it comes to how we got these trucks. We paid for this truck. We didn't get a discount. We actually paid MSRP for this truck, probably more than we should have, only because it was actually very difficult to find one of these trucks with the Baby Duramax in it. So that's the reason why we had to pay more for this truck, and the only reason why we got a Denali is because that's really the only package we could find with that engine that was available. On the other hand, this truck was equally even more difficult to find, right? We had to go through a long process of ordering trucks, canceling orders, reordering trucks, and then ultimately finding this truck at a dealership. Both trucks are relatively hard to find in the configuration you're looking at. Baby Duramax, F450. That makes them both kind of rare, but this is certainly the easier truck to find than this truck. That said, when you look at how each manufacturer kind of tackles the way they treat their customers in terms of design and ergonomics, they both do it in a very different way. And it's interesting to see how GM kind of focuses their attention around certain details, removing certain details, doing certain things, and Ford kind of does it their own way. And I say this because both of these manufacturers clearly have marketing programs. They have, you know, folks who try to go out and figure out what truck owners want, what they're looking for. They both have totally different approaches to interiors, where they place things, what they do with things. You know, for instance, 12-volt adapters have been removed from GM and Chevrolet pickup trucks, whereas 12-volt adapters still exist on Ford pickup trucks. You look at the tailgate. They give you a really cool multi-pro tailgate on the GMC and multi-flex tailgate on the Chevy, which I've really grown to appreciate. I like that. Ford, on the other hand, continues with their step-up assist. I call it the man step, but they don't give you any means to get closer to the interior of your bed, which I think is the main perk of that tailgate. They both have interesting routes that they've gone in terms of lighting. You get animated lighting on the GMC Denali where it fades on, and on the Chevy it does a cool little animated light up, but you don't get auto leveling or rotating headlights, whereas on the Denali you do. Now if you go to certain GM vehicles or even Cadillacs, which kind of fall under the same GM umbrella, you can get auto leveling headlights. But again, Ford has decided to put them on their super high trim heavy duty trucks, which is interesting. You look at the two in terms of their stance. I always feel that GMC has a more full looking truck. It doesn't look like there's any weird gaps or hollow spots, but Ford has always kind of created these gaps and hollow spots in the wheel wells and different areas that make them look and feel a lot different. And you know, when you look at the two vehicles, just the way that they give you technology on the screen, what they want to share with you, how you can use that technology is vastly different between the two trucks. So I can kind of understand that if you're used to one brand, why you would stick with that brand. If you're used to a truck that is specifically tailoring the type of ergonomics and technology and interiors to you, they haven't really changed a lot. If you look at the interior of Chevy GMC trucks, you'll see that the interiors are an evolution from what they've been doing over the last decade, but they're not a complete departure. They've done really great things in terms of technology, what they show you on the screen, how you access it, but it is definitely more in line with a evolutionary upgrade versus a complete switch in ideology and how they do things. Ford's the same way. If you look at their sync system and you look at how they've progressed through different generations of it, how that touch feel is, how the function of everything has been very similar over the past decade, you can see why if you've owned a Ford truck in the past and you go into a newer truck, you will have to learn things. There are learning curves, but it's going to feel like a natural progression of the vehicle that you might have had before. And the same holds true for General Motors. Now, the thing that confuses me more about General Motors vehicles are how they tend to make bold moves by removing things or not providing things that other manufacturers may have been doing for a while. For instance, Ford has offered a panoramic sunroof on their trucks for some time now. You've been able to get that for on the F-150, I think since like 2016, 2015, on the Super Duty since 2017, and you can of course get it all the way up through today. My wife's Expedition, kind of the same thing. You can get them on certain GM vehicles, but on the pickup trucks, you can't. And on any of the GM pickup trucks, whether it's a Chevy or a GMC, they don't offer a panoramic sunroof. Now, I don't know how important that is to folks who opt for a sunroof, but when I interviewed the folks over at General Motors, they basically said it was kind of a cost weighing thing. They had to figure out what they could add to the truck, where they could shave cost, where they could add it back, and a sunroof, going to a panoramic sunroof, just wasn't on the docket for 2023 or really any year before that. Another one, again, is the 12-volt adapters. You don't know how much you miss those until they're gone. Kind of like air conditioning vents. It was a bold move for GM to remove backseat air conditioning vents from their pickup trucks for a good period of time, and I don't understand the logic behind it, because I feel as if you'd ask any General Motors pickup truck owner, they would have told you, don't remove the rear seat air conditioning vents. I can't imagine why somebody would just say, hey, this is a great idea, let's just do it, and then all of a sudden start selling a truck that lacked rear air conditioning vents. The same thing holds true for the 12-volt outlets. As much as some people are going to say, you know what, you're sharing your age when you say that, there are still tons of things that you can buy today that require that 12-volt outlet. For instance, certain dash cameras. You want to buy cameras for your RV if you want to put a backup camera and things like that. There are all sorts of things that will not pull power from USB or USB-C and still require a 12-volt up to 10 amp connection. And you know, when I asked the folks over at Ford, they basically said, we're never going to eliminate them. Because I made a big deal about that at the Media Drive event at the Proving Grounds a year or two ago. And I said, are you ever going to remove these? And they said, we wouldn't, because there's always somebody who needs those 12-volt outlets. I do think there should be more of them, but at least they give you two in the Ford and they give you none in the GM. And that's just a big miss. That's one of those areas that I've had to add them to be able to support things that I want to put inside of this truck that should just natively have a 12-volt socket. Now, the purpose of this video ultimately is to get your feedback. I'd love to know if you've owned a Ford truck or a Ram truck and you've switched to a GM truck, or you've owned a GM truck, a Chevy or GMC, and you've switched to a Ford or a Ram. What are some of the things that you're noticing that one manufacturer is doing that perhaps the other manufacturer isn't? Maybe the brand that you want to get does something that the brand you currently have doesn't. And I'd love to hear from you guys. Leave a comment below. I think it's definitely worth letting manufacturers know that if you're going to switch brands, or if you have switched brands and you're lacking something that the brand you had before had, was it important to you, and is it important enough for you that you expect them to add it back? Sorry, I got this bird that's been circling my head for the last 30 minutes. And this is an opportunity, again, for you to voice your opinion on things that you feel are missing from the trucks that you're investing your money into, or the trucks you may plan on investing your money into. But leave a comment below. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.